Someone cooked here.
This is for heaven.
So I just finished Stone Ocean a couple days ago, the anime adaptation. And one thing I want to lead off with in this video, because this is probably primarily going to be pros, how great I thought the anime was, or some things I think made it the top tier as far as adaptations go. One thing I want to say is the Binge Model sucks, right? I found out that then they announced it ahead of time that it was going to be on December 1st. I remember that. But I just literally remembered that there was a third batch that got posted December 1st, 5 days ago. I would have never happened if they dropped these weekly. The hype was so dead after that second batch, which came out, I believe, September 1st. And I just forgot about it. Life came on, and I forgot that there was going to be a third batch. Please do not do this with part seven, which is a massive arc in and of itself. Do not do the batch format. It kills hype, and for busy people like me that are not able to just revolve around anime anymore, sometimes things just get lost and swept under the rug. Do not do the damn batch format again. I am telling you right now, I will be very pissed. So going from there, I'm just going to speed through a couple pros that I felt like were pervasive in this series. So one big one to me is Jolene. I feel like Jolene really just came off the page and was huge in this anime format. Her mannerisms I thought were even more likable. I did feel like, and some people I think kind of pointed this out in the first batch. I don't really follow this too much with the subsequent batches, but I think her sultriness, her kind of rapscallion attitude, especially when it comes to topics of a sexual nature, that didn't get touched on too much with the adaptation, I feel like. But they did a really good job of pronouncing how honorable and how Joestar esque she is. That's that level of honor and justice, which heavy headed, beaten on the proverbial drum by Poochie at a certain point in the latter saga, or the latter batch. Justice is what makes a Joestars. That's a very reoccurring theme, and it's something that, as we get further from Jonathan, has to get pronounced in different ways. But honor does matter. It's something that is a spell for Jolene when she is in moments where she is reviewing her past. She thinks of things she did that she may regret, formatted against her sense. Sometimes, obviously, different code of honor than she had previously, but pretty much against her code of honor from point A to point B. The very beginning to the very end, she puts things against her code of honor, and that develops as we get further into the series. So some things that she might have done, and maybe even not regretted, she may regret towards the end. But I thought that the anime did a wonderful job of just really pronouncing how complex and I think well rounded that Jolene's breast character is. And I love Jolene. She's one of my favorite Joestars ever since I started, or ever since I did initially read Part 6, about 2018 or so. She's always been one of my top three, give or take, Joestars. And I think that this just did a wonderful job of even cementing that status, in my opinion. So one thing that I think always held parts is back in terms of public reception, because this is for people who don't really follow the community too much, which is I don't think you should. Parsis is a part that is on the lower rung for a lot of people, especially if you're starting from the stand parts, which I tend to think is when many people start in terms of how they evaluate this series, part three on. Part six is one that is not well regarded amongst the upper half of the parts. Generally, you'll see seven, five, four, and some people, if you're kind of more of a fan of one and two, you'll throw three up there. But six is generally held in this kind of stasis that's separate of the rest of them. And one huge reason because of that at least from what I could tell, is the cast. I wouldn't say that people hate on the cast per se, but it's just I don't think they have the some of the standout features that some people look for with other casts that are well regarded. Like there's not a singular Joe Bro that's heralded, right? Like I think people like Hermes, who I think is generally considered the Joe Bro of this part. But she's not, you know, Bruno. She's not some of these other ones that are almost as heralded for different reasons than the Joestar themselves. This is really a part that I always felt the the cast really serves to be development for the main Joestar more than any other part. Really, if you think about it, like they kind of were just plot devices oftentimes. But one thing I think this adaptation did a great job of doing is giving guys and gals their individual moments that really feel impactful on their own. I think back to I think it was the first batch where we get Hermes kind of backstory with Sports Maximum, and I thought those were some of the best, really some of the best anime moments in this series. Period, from part one to just now. I thought it was massive. Her um, just emotional and a therapeutic moment of being the Shadow Sports Maximum. I thought that was incredible. Emporio, he gets his moments towards the tail end, the last batch, that were impactful in the manga as well. Don't get me wrong, but we really get just how this guy who always played the back, like this is his own character. Like he deserved this moment, you know. Like obviously a lot of people would like to see just Jotaro being a Shadapuchi or Jolene figuring out some way to defeat Made in Heaven, but Emporio deserved this moment. I mean, he was traumatized by Poochie before any of these Joe Stars came along, before any of these Joe Bros came along. I mean, he was the first one to really be affected by Poochie out of all of them. And he deserved the moment, you know, and so forth. I mean, Weather Report. I mean, you really get an idea of how fucking evil Poochie is with how fucked up he did both of his siblings and their lives. I mean, this guy justified a lot of terrible shit that he did to other people. And some of the most terrible shit he ever did was to Weather Report and indirectly to Prolapucci. And even Anasoy, I mean, I feel like a lot of his moments, especially in the last batch, were of an extension of Jolene, which kind of is counterintuitive to what I was saying earlier. But I mean, this is just a guy that was very entertaining, very interesting. And even if he kind of reminds me a lot of Polnareff, where yes, I mean most of his highlights are going to be because somebody else was a part of that highlight, but this guy just had progress as a character from beginning to end in this part, and I really liked him. I may be bitching somebody here, but I thought they did a good job of really exploring the cast and really making them feel Foo Fighters. Yeah, Foo Fighters went out like a fucking G. You still felt like you still remembered Foo Fighters, even though she basically dies at the really about the halfway point in this part. A lot goes on past her demise, but she was such an impactful character. You still kind of feel like these characters really miss Foo Fighters even to this point, even though in both the manga and the anime, Foo Fighters really isn't like blatantly touched on too much after. So yeah, this might be again another like personal, not necessarily problem, but personal thing that I noticed. So a lot of questions were asked about part sit stands. A lot of part sit stands, especially the villain stands, didn't always make the most sense, especially when you're like kind of looking at how the powers could be used, and how the powers actually were end up being used. I think his name was Dragon's Stream or Dragon's Dogma, something like that. I think of Sea Moon. I think of Maiden Heaven. I think of Underworld. You know, there's a couple different stands that like were very interestingly depicted. And sometimes what went into that were some restrictions in the paper format. Sometimes things just did not make sense when reading in manga, and that's what I think anime always brings, especially when you get to bigger moments like with Attack on Titan. Rod Rice's moments, kind of as he was transforming. I think the scope of kind of all that went along with that battle looked a lot better in the anime. I just think that they did a great job of kind of really trying to break down and explain shit in this. Concepts, conceptually, that's the biggest thing with JoJo. That's the thing that like really holds parts together from being in is concepts. And I think part six kind of begins this. I won't say it's a. It's not. I'm not trying to say it's the first one to involve concepts heavily. Like part five literally ends with this conceptual stand that ties in the entire story. So I'm not trying to say it's the first one that starts with concepts, but with how involved concepts are to the storytelling and the narrative in part six, that is something that is huge in part seven and eight going forward. In this alternate universe that they go with. So it is important to underlie how everything spins from some concept. I don't want to keep on using that word in part six. Shout out to my AC. Let me go turn this shit off. Everything stems back from some kind of foundation in part six. Luck, fate, gravity, excuse me, coincidences, Mobius strips, all of this shit that seems like, oh my god, this doesn't affect the simple battle, or this doesn't affect the simple conversation. Two people being drawn to each other. That stuff matters a ton in this part, and I think that this adaptation does a great job of trying to hold relevancy to how pervasive those moments are. Going from there, very interconnected scope. I thought scope was huge. And part six, I feel like it's definitely one of the, I would say probably the biggest in terms of what it touches with powers and concepts and all that stuff to this point in the series. Really, I mean, part one's literally just like vampire. God fights vampire. Like to go from there to these literally universal stands that speed up entire universes from being aged and born again and all that stuff. I mean, scope is huge in part six. And I thought they did a really wonderful job of keeping us in the loop, helping us see visually and understand, hear, feel how big everything is, while keeping it grounded and not too drawn out. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody is literally a global stance. I understand. I mean, from what I can understand, characters spun off from Orlando, but this, as I just recall from the manga, and also the basic narration that occurs within that little mini arc, this touched the entirety of the United States, and I see no reason why it would just be limited to the United States, even for the sake of just saying the United States. Like it's a huge stand, and obviously you can't draw out every little nook and cranny that you may have. I don't know, fucking kid trunks come off the page, or you might have fucking, I don't know. Actually, I know it's global because Japan. They mentioned Japan. They mentioned Kenshiro from I believe Fist of the North Star. So it happened in Japan too. So it was not just contained to the United States. I think it's just cool that they were able to put how large that stand was in a box. Uh, Obviously, we know just from using your brain that like this is huge. This is bigger than just what we are seeing. But they gave us enough insight to give us an idea, just a little nibble of how big that was. And that same storytelling, that same depiction, uh, masterpiece spreads to some of the harder stands to digest in Sea Moon and namely Made in Heaven. Sea Moon flips things on their axes. I'm not gonna pretend I understand all of Sea Moon. The closer that it is to Poochie. Poochie is kind of like the center of gravity, and things in a certain radius are flipped in relation to him, gravity-wise, gravity affects or is acting differently in terms of his strength, in terms of the push-pull element as well, in that general radius around Poochie. And I thought they just did a really good job of showing how, it was manageable. I mean, Diver, what is it in the adaptation? Diver Dive or Diver Drive, some shit like that. Diver Down is able to use its power to scale almost like a mountain. This what was floor now is a wall. With the guy that basically, I mean, he was a little bit talkative, but he gets treated like shit. We see how gravity pulls him to the side and just pushes him in, like literally. It's hard to explain, but like basically he goes to the wall that's to his right, like it's the ground, and he's being pushed into this wall. I think he's pretty much one of the first ones that feel the presence of gravity going from up down to this now being up down, like boop to boop. He's pretty much the first one to understand that feels that, and the Coke follows suit. All this stuff that happens basically when gravity is flipped, and they just do a good job of like showing you kind of like directionally how this all is happening, because spatially and directionally, like that is a little bit complex to kind of conceive of, but they do a good job of showing you how that all works. And Made in Heaven, I mean, we're seeing the entire world accelerate and the entire universe accelerate even. And while we don't see like literally the entire world, we see like different scenes and different actions, different people doing different activities that time affects them all in their own respective ways. It's usually pretty entertaining. But I mean, we even see like when I feel sacrilege even saying this, but when Jotaro, it's a spoiler. When Jotaro, it's a spoiler. It's literally the biggest Joe star in the history of the franchise. When he gets killed, when Jotaro dies, and Hermes as well, we literally see them like wither away like in minutes, basically, which was very fucking impactful emotionally speaking. To see like Jotaro just got sliced. Also, I think time. They do with time. They do the general premise of time. I mean, it happens almost the same way in the manga too. Like literally, Jotaro loses. Time comes back. Jotaro loses. Hermes tries to fight and gets fucking killed. All these deaths happen just in quick succession. Just do. That happens in the manga too, but it's also done well in the anime to just depict like how quickly these dudes are getting fucking negged. Time gets depicted in such a fucking, I think, adequate and appropriate way as we get to the last batch. And I mean, I just think they do a fucking good job. To conclude, I loved Part 6. I really hate that they did the binge model because I feel like it really belayed what was, I think, a very impactful part, and one that I think has individual value that you cannot find in other parts. I think the binge model, the batch model, was fucking stupid. Just to be blunt, and I thought that it killed a lot of hype, and maybe I did a video that I may put somewhere around here where I thought that the contemporaries of that time when the first batch happened, I believe it was Demon Slayer and was it Jujutsu Kaisen or was it Chainsaw Man? It was another one that was popular around the same time with the Red Light District. It was Attack on Titan actually. The Red Light District and Attack on Titan happened at the same time. Those were huge, like literally like genre expanding, fucking genre breaking parts that were massive. And this came started the first batch happened at the same time as those parts, around the same time, I guess. And it didn't get half the fucking ratings because it just literally dropped all at once on Netflix, and that was it. I just don't. I don't think that was a great model. I don't. One other thing that was just a maybe personal preference thing. I know some people will probably complain about it too, but fucking not ending with "What a Wonderful World." God, dude, that I don't know, man. I understand the continuity that was gained from having fuck, I forgot the name of it. I had it written down. I forgot the name of it. The Dreamer song. The Dreamer track having every ending. They had the same ending for just about I think every part. They may have done some. I skipped some of the outros. I'm not gonna lie to you, but yeah, I think they had the same outro for almost everyone that wasn't basically like some fight, something happened that basically represented the outro. Generally, pretty much every episode, the Dreamer's track was the ending to the episode. That continuity was key and kind of allowed you to say, hey, I'm going to have this be the last outro. It's not the last song that's ending. It ends with the JoJo track, but it's the last episode outro. And I would have liked to have What a Wonderful World. I think that would have fit. Some people say that fit better for what was happening there, the Dreamers. But what a fucking wonderful world. Like, literally, we're seeing, like, we don't even know what Emporio is feeling at that moment. Like, some people would say happiness, some people would say sadness. You could say a twist of both. But I think that the solemnness of What a Wonderful World, the song, what that represents really, I think, underlines how fucking crazy everything that happens in the last arc, I guess I would say, everything that happens there. If you just have What a Wonderful World play, I think it just really brings all, it's like ties all of these insane just events together and just kind of compacts them. I really think it does a great job of representing some of the emotions that at least I had when reading Part Six. But they went a different direction. And Rocky seemed to really like the Dreamers track, as I understand. So whatever, I guess. And I mean, ultimately ends with the JoJo track and kind of a recap of the original JoJo universe, which they do that because we're never seeing that again. As I understand, there's never going to be a tie-in with the original JoJo universe again. There's going to be references and shit like that, even just pulling names and characters and personalities from it, but we're never going to return to the original JoJo universe. And it's been, I think, Part Seven came out in 2004 or five, and Part Eight came in 2011. So it's been roughly 2 decades of this alternate universe, and we never returned back to the original one. So I doubt that however long Part Nine lasts, that'll be touched on, but we'll see. I think Part Nine will be the last part of this entire franchise, and I hope to do some predictions for Part Nine also before Part Nine drops. I think in Friday or Saturday of this week. So hopefully I get that done. But anyway, I don't think we'll ever get back to the original universe. So it would have been nice to have that, fucking What a Wonderful World literally just kind of like, can I focus? Focus? No focus? All right, cool. So no focus. All right. Well, anyway, we're ending up this video here. I thought Part Six was, it may not end up being my actual favorite part from the anime adaptations, but I think they did a really good job of showing why this one was really fucking cool. And maybe my title will be some grand lie, like, "Oh my god, it's the best as it's ever been, and there would never be a better part." But I really did believe that like this was a part that deserved some of the home cooking and just love to show why this one is so valuable. And they did a good job of doing that. So shout out to David Productions, shout out to Hirohiko Araki, shout out to everybody else involved in bringing this to light. And I thought they just did a fantastic fucking job. Peace.